So, welcome today to the First Friday Entrepreneurship Call with K-State Research and Extension. The First Friday e-call was a brainchild of the K-State Research and Extension agents and specialists whose focus is community vitality. They wanted to nurture small business and inspire entrepreneurship across the state. And I'm just constantly amazed. I keep thinking we might run out of resources to call to their attention, but there are so many things going on that I hope that we don't ever run out of opportunities. The call is meant to engage the knowledge, wisdom, and relationships of the local communities with the research and experimentation of the university and the state to create vital communities. And in the last 12 months, Network Kansas has merged a group that it was hosting called the Rural Partners into this call, and that brought just one more level of richness to the participation. And so we hope that you came to the call today thinking about things that you might be able to share from your own field of expertise that others might need to know. And this call is being recorded for future reference on our website. I'll send out a link afterwards. I'm going to be challenged to get it onto the website before I leave for a one-week vacation, so there may be a gap, a little bit of a wait for this call today, or maybe it will happen after all. So with no further ado, I'd like to make two introductions today. Debbie Franklin is going to talk to us about the the SBIR and STTR grants, and Scott Knapp from Kansas PTAC, and both of them are coming to us from Wichita State, welcome, are going to talk about the roles that they play in supporting these important programs. Okay, Debbie, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and I'm honored to be part of your series, your entrepreneurship series, and appreciate the opportunity to highlight the small business innovation research grants and the small business technology transfer grants that are research grants that are available to inventors and innovators across America. We're going to walk through today a number of different elements, starting with information on the SBIR and STTR programs. These programs are administered through the Small Business Administration, but they are inclusive of all of the different departments and agencies. Well, 11 of the different departments and agencies issue SBIR awards, and there are 5 departments: Department of Defense, Energy, Health and Human Services, NASA, and the National Science Foundation, who do STTRs. So a little background about where does this money come from and how much money is there. So this slide highlights the federal government. They have over $75 billion a year in extramural research and development dollars. And these dollars go to a variety of different sources. One source, of course, is directly to businesses. Some of that money goes to federally funded laboratories. Some comes to universities. And a percentage of this, 3.2% of the total budget from the various agencies that have extramural research, goes into small businesses through the Small Business Innovation Research Fund and the STTR for tech transfer. And so that's where that money comes from. So every year, $3 billion, quickly approaching close to $4 billion go out to businesses. So what does that cover? And what does it do? So this money is non-recourse contracts and grants. It goes to small U.S.-owned companies, 51% or greater, to develop new products or services that are identified by the federal government that are based on innovative, unproven concepts and technologies. Okay? So small businesses, new products and services that are based on innovative, unproven concepts and technologies. Each year there's over 5,000 new awards. And so if Kansas were to pool its 1% of that, then we would have 550 awards in our state every year. If you look at the most recent numbers, we don't have that many. We have some years we have 10, some years we have 20. So we are not using our muscles, our entrepreneurial muscles, because we know Kansas has plenty of entrepreneurs and innovators and inventors in our state, but they are not accessing this particular funding mechanism to help advance their technologies. And this is non-dilutive funding, so it's a very powerful tool for small businesses to use. So what's the goal of these particular funds? As you can see, the small business, again, is the Small Business Innovation Research Award, established back in '82, and 10 years later we added the tech transfer elements. Stimulate technological innovation, and it's used for small businesses to meet federal R&D needs. So if you are working with innovators, or you are an innovator or an inventor, your area of interest may have something complementary in the federal R&D needs. You don't necessarily have to be developing for the federal government, but you are developing on a technology that may have complementary applications at the federal area of interest. They do programs to support participation of women and socially economically disadvantaged persons in technology innovation, but they do not get preference. So they do outreach, they provide intentional outreach to these people groups, but there is not bonus points on an application for those. And it's in the whole reason for doing this, the reason that they put aside 3% of that money, over 3% of that money, to support small businesses, because they want to increase private sector commercialization, not count only on industry, not only on the federal labs, but they want to have small businesses engaged in commercialization of technologies of interest to the federal government. A similar situation here with the Small Business Technology Transfer Grants. These foster collaboration with the research units in universities. And so it's a small subset of funding that encourages innovators and entrepreneurs to work with the universities to move technology. So it can be a technology that was created in a university, but that's not mandatory. It could be a technology that your clients, your private clients are using, or that you as a private individual are moving forward, and you collaborate with the university to help you with testing, evaluation, research, all those particular elements. And so this particular program has been reauthorized, and will be, the reauthorization runs through 2022. So how are the SBIR programs, how do those operate? We understand that there's lots of money, over $3 billion, approaching $4 billion every year. There's 4,000 awards that go out every year. How does it work? Well, they have different phases, as this slide is showing you. The SBIR, STTR programs run in Phase 1 and Phase 2, but that funding stream doesn't move into Phase 3. So let's go back to look at Phase 1 and Phase 2. So the way these work is that Phase 1 runs between 6 and 9 months. So the federal government puts out topics. Innovators, inventors, look through those topics, identify areas of interest or mutual interest between the federal government and the innovator, and they then put in an application to do 6 to 9 months of work with a budget of between $100,000 and $225,000. The typical award is $150,000. And it does vary based on agency, so we're just going to leave the summary comments here as we explore this as an overview. Lots of additional detail should you pick a topic and start to work on developing a proposal. But to do the overview, we're just going to look at them in a generic format. The innovator, should they receive an award, would then execute that award, and during the period of performance, the innovator, if they're choosing to continue their R&D, they would then put in a Phase 2 proposal. Now, they could wait a while to do it, but the gap between Phase 1 and Phase 2 then becomes larger. So what kind of work gets done in Phase 1? They're basically looking at the merit or feasibility of a particular program of study that is being introduced to solve the technology problem. Phase 2 moves beyond feasibility and is looking at prototypes or processes. So if you are working with an innovator who already has a prototype, they need to re-pitch their idea as feasibility because they're pitching an idea toward a federal market need rather than a public market need. If they can do that, if they can reposition themselves and examine feasibility for the federal market need, then they can apply for the Phase 1. And most innovators can do that. We don't usually have too much trouble when working with individuals, and we'd be happy to work with you as you work with your clients to help them reposition their scope of work to identify feasibility issues. And then in Phase 2, it is a 2-year duration, and these are funding of up to $1 million or more than $1 million, depending on the agency that you're working with. So those become very significant awards. So I liken this as you work with your clients, or if you are the innovator, I liken this to doing a speed dating situation. So, you know, when you go on and you do some speed dating, you have to do your registration, you put in your profile, and then you begin to look at your options. And as you look at the topics that are listed on SBIR website and the various agency topics, you can do keyword searches, and you can look by agency. You can look under various high-level topic groups, and it's sort of what, you know, speed dating. You pull up your speed. I've been married since Moses crossed the Red Sea, so I might not get this quite right, but my understanding is that you begin to look at the various options on these speed dating sites, and you can swipe left or swipe right. Interested, not interested. Interested, not interested. And so when you're getting ready to do a Phase 1, you are going to be wading through a number of SBIR topics and identifying ones that are of interest to your technical expertise, and then you'll narrow that list down and decide if you want to go on a first date. So your proposal is basically a first date. If we were to go on a first date, which lasts 6 to 9 months, the date's going to cost $150,000. This is what we do. This is my feasibility plan. Should the federal agency pick you up and fund you, you will then execute that particular scope of work, that feasibility study that you have identified. Pretty quick into a date, you know whether you're interested in a second date or not, right? And that's why you're going to begin to start thinking about your Phase 2 in the middle of your Phase 1. If you like the agency, if they like you, then you're going to put in a Phase 2 and move into the prototype or processes phase of your research and development initiative. You then put in a Phase 2 award. much more money comes forward. The process takes 2 years, and you begin to develop a prototype for the Department of Defense, or for the Department of Homeland Security, or for the Department of Energy or Education. And those Phase 2 awards, should they go well, can be renewed. It sometimes is confusing to folks. You have Phase 1, Phase 2. Yeah, there's a Phase 3, but that you can get a Phase 2B or a Phase 2C. If you're not quite ready to go to market, if it's a highly sophisticated technology, or if the parameters are evolving, then they will sometimes issue Phase 2Bs or Phase 2C programs, again, at $1 million for 2 years, more years worth of work. Those are options. And that indicates a great deal of interest by the federal agency in you as an inventor, or your client as an inventor, and their likelihood of it becoming a commercialized product or process. You can choose to commercialize with the federal government. You can choose to commercialize independently. There are a variety of different ways that you can do that, and your product or process can also go into the commercial markets. There's no restrictions. You are welcome to patent it, but there are some rules about the federal government having free access to it. But if you're taking it to commercial markets, you can do that, and you can patent it, and of course, you can make profit. You can include profit in your budget in Phase 1 and in Phase 2 as well. Some details we could explore if you have a client or if you are interested in moving forward on that. So some of the resources that we have available for people who are exploring whether this is the right funding mechanism for them, or if they're ready for this funding mechanism, we've created an eligibility checklist and a readiness assessment. And this is on our website. I'd be happy to send it to you if this is of interest to you. And again, some of the requirements are you have to be organized for-profit U.S. business. If you have an inventor or an innovator who is not yet organized as a business and are interested in doing a Phase 1, that is okay. They will write in their scope of work that as they are receiving the award, they will then become an organized for-profit business, and that's acceptable. There must be at least 51% U.S. ownership by individuals, and be independently operated. So a large firm can't roll something out and not have them be independent and harness this money. They are looking to truly give the money to small businesses. 500 or fewer employers, and the principal investigator's primary employment must be with a small business during the project. As Nancy told you at the start, I work at the university, and sometimes we get principal investigators who are tenured track faculty or tenured faculty members, and they will need to take a leave of absence if they're going to be the principal investigator. The way that many of the faculty members manage this is they have a graduate research assistant or a postdoc who is the principal investigator, and they are then scientifically involved with this study. But if you're working with universities, I'm sure you're aware of these nuances, but if I can help you wade through some of those, I would be happy to, or members of our team would be happy to help you with that. And then there are some questions on our checklist about how to get started in this process. The eligibility checklist, all of those do need to be yes, but in the section called Are You Ready to Get Started? Those are more of a checklist of have you started into these. Nobody expects those to be complete. They're very iterative as they move through those, but it gives them a feel for some of the things that they should be doing as they move forward. We highly recommend that innovators and inventors begin at least 10 weeks in advance of the proposal due date. There's lots to be done, and Scott's going to help with some of those pieces as we talk about the registrations here in a minute. The PTACs are marvelous at helping them to be prepared in that scope. So we'll be talking to Scott here momentarily. Agency information. I told you SBA, Small Business Administration, oversees this particular program, but they do not issue awards. They are the oversight group. Over on the right side of your screen, you can see the various budgets that the agencies have. Some of these agencies have modest budgets, $4 million, $7 million, $8 million, meaningful money, but modest budgets. The big players in here are the Department of Defense, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the National Institute of Health, and then the Department of Energy is another very large player in these particular markets. I would encourage you and or your clients, when you're searching for topics, to perhaps focus on one or two agencies when you begin, but before you close down your search, you're going to want to open it up to all the agencies, because the Health and Human Services programs are broad and inclusive of all types of human health, but the Department of Defense also is concerned about human health, and so is the Department of Education concerned about human health. So when doing your searches, you may want to start with a focal agency, but I would encourage you to be inclusive, because the competition at Health and Human Services may be very, very strong, and the competition in the Department of Education, because they have more modest funding pots, may not be getting as much attention, and there may not be as much competition in those particular areas. So I have my friends Einstein and oh, good grief, the other gentleman's name is missing for me. But grants are very good for good ideas. Contracts are very, very good for problems, if there is a specific problem or need. And so, as you can see, we've got some granting agencies, we have some contracting agencies that it depends on the way that they're responding to particular innovation technologies. So the Department of Defense is a contract agency. They're in gold in the right column and also in the pie graph. And so when you're evaluating topics under the Department of Defense, you will notice very specific applications, ways that they are very specifically trying to solve a need for the Navy or for the Air Force. And again, your innovation might have application in commercial markets, but the Defense Department is trying to solve a very specific problem, where the Department of Energy gives grants, and these are grants that are based on good ideas, not necessarily toward a specific problem or outcome that is needed. So now I'm going to put up two slides here that start to get really busy. So I do apologize for that, but this is intended to be slides that help you get to the online resources. So this first slide includes, on the left side of your screen, a screenshot from the opening SBIR.gov website. So when you open it up, it begins with a search box, and that's where you're going to put in your key words for the type of innovation that you're interested in. And that's an art, just like any search that you've done before. There is an art to figuring out what are the right keywords, what is the order of the keywords. So again, we ask people to start this in advance, 10 weeks or earlier in advance, so that they can begin to look at topics. Now, if you're working with a client and you get in here, you will notice that they have topics that are current and topics that are past, absolutely they need to be looking at the current topics. But I would encourage them to look at the past topics for the past 18 months to see what the agencies were funding. It gives everyone a real good feel for what they're likely to be funding going forward. Funding that is open may only be open for 12 weeks. And so there's a lot to be seen back in the closed funding, the former funding topics that will prepare you for what is opening in the months coming forward. So you see that there's a hand pointing to the search mechanism so that hopefully we all see where we're going to put our keyword searches. You'll also notice that on the right side of your screen is once you've put in some keywords here, you're going to see a variety of different elements coming out that you can look at. And the list, this particular list, has 13 results. And we've got from the Department of the Defense, Air Force, Navy on this particular one. You'll notice when you pull up these searches that there is a down select bar on the left side saying agency, phase, program, and year. So I've selected only 2019 on this particular search, and I have all the agencies coming up on this particular search that I did. And what I've searched for is broadband. So if you look over on the left, you'll see I've put broadband in my search box. And then when I hit search, and I had it selected, I had selected for 2019 to keep this not as lengthy, these are the results that come up. If these are too specific and I don't want to get a contract, I want a grant, then I would go in and select my granting agencies and look through those particular topics. Moving on to our next slide is going to give you some of the additional information that you'll see as you click on any of the items on the previous page. So if you were to click on any of these particular topics that you're seeing, you are going to come to this type of content. And again, we have across the top, which is too small to see, solicitation, agency, program, release date, open date, and due dates. And so this will help folks to get into the various topics of interest. I'm not going to select any of those teeny tiny little blue topic headings that are listed there, but when you do, up is going to come the program solicitation. Lots of detail, lots of information. And so if you're working with a client or if you are the innovator, looking at closed solicitations gives them a feel for what to expect when a solicitation does open. I've even gone so far as to encourage people to start to draft to a closed solicitation in anticipation for the opening of a solicitation that is very likely close to what was recently closed. They don't necessarily repeat topics, but there are very, very close similarities in many of the topics from round to round. Some of the agencies post only once a year, and other agencies post in twice a year. When you begin the application process, again, it's our strong recommendation that they start at least 10 weeks out from the proposal due date. And we have a roadmap that we have created, real quick summary for folks to help guide them as they do their planning as to what should be done at which particular point in time. If somebody starts 8 weeks out, that's fine. This isn't a full-time job for 10 weeks. They usually estimate about 80 hours, 80 to 100 hours into one of these applications, but it can happen over a period of 10 weeks. And so if you start at 8 weeks, you're just going to have to understand that it's going to take a good bit more attention than if you had given yourself more time. One of the first things that we're going to talk about on the roadmap are your required registrations. And so I have a list of the various agencies: NASA, Health and Human Services, National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and some of the various registrations that are required for each of them. So as you work with your clients, it depends a lot on whose solicitation they're going to put an application in for. They can put in for more than one agency at the same time, but they do need to include a paragraph in their application that identifies that that is their intention and what they are doing. You can't get funded for the same thing twice, but it is a practice of many innovators to put in technology development proposals in multiple agencies on similar type of projects, and you just want to be forthright in making forward those particular informations. So before I turn this over to Scott, I want to talk about some next steps for your clientele. The first thing we encourage them to do, these would be over on your roadmap, is explore SBIR.gov for potential topics. Again, review closed topics for the most recent 18 months to provide context for future solicitations. I know that feels like you might be wasting your time, but I promise you if you do that and learn how they did it last year, you're going to be much better prepared to tackle an application going forward. You're welcome to make appointments to come and see us, the KSBDC, or the Kansas Small Business Development Technology Development Centers are always open to help you with your exploration and your applications going forward. We can't write it for you, but we can help you with that. You need to complete and update your required registrations. And of course, for help with this, your PTAC is the best group to engage with to help you with that. They're very knowledgeable, great experience. They know what's changing in the systems. Review your previous solicitations in your topic area. Consider development team. Huge element here. Some agencies really like PhDs. If you have somebody who is interested in a National Science Foundation, they probably should have a PhD on their team, but the other agencies do not necessarily prioritize that. The teams, you do want them to have expertise and access to facilities, and that's something that your innovators can begin to do as they start doing these exploration. Consider who their team is. And then, of course, watch SBIR.gov for future releases. If they're looking at the former releases, the ones that are closed, they're going to be able to see when they were released. Were they released in July? Were they released in October? And they'll have a better feel for whenever the topics are going to become publicized yet again. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Scott. And Scott is going to share with you a good deal more about the required registrations. And so the second bullet on where we are, and I'll turn it over to Scott.
Good morning. I'm Scott Knapp. I'm Deputy Director of Kansas Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We call ourselves Kansas PTAC. Excuse me. When we get involved in a lot of the things that are going on in the SBIR world, and one of the main things that we help companies, innovators with, is to make sure that they have their registration completed prior to putting in their application. They don't want to work on all of that 10 or 11 weeks that Debbie just talked about and find that they're ready to send it in on this today, you know, Friday a lot of times is when it's due, and they haven't done their System for Award Management Registration, SAM registration. They don't have their number that they need, which presently is a Dun and Bradstreet number. It's going to change in the near future, but that's where it is today. All of those things are going to take time. Right now, we're looking at a 4 to 5 week lag from the time that they actually begin the SAM process and they get the final part of their registration if things are going smoothly without any questions coming back. So definitely that week 3 on the roadmap is a good place to at least be there, if not week 1 or week 2. So don't call me the day it's due. It's not an instantaneous process. Kansas PTAC is also a Wichita State hosted institution, and we have offices in Overland Park at Johnson County Community College and then in Topeka, go to Topeka to assist you if you're in other parts of the state besides Wichita. A lot of the information was very good that Debbie gave you a lot of good information there on how to begin to move forward. You know, engage with her, engage with us, and any other of the people that are working on this in Kansas all the time. That checklist again, the DUNS number, we will provide you with a place to get that information free. You don't have to pay for it. None of these registrations that you're going to do you need to pay for. So don't pay $599 to somebody to help you through the process. There's a lot of change, a lot of interesting things going on the SBIR side. Again, as Debbie said, the grants and the contracts run a lot differently. The granting agencies are usually trying to do something for the good of the world. So that's why you see National Institute of Health, the USDA, some of those organizations doing that. When you get into the side where you're in contracts, you're at Department of Defense, they're trying to find something that's going to help the warfighter, and they're going to be very specific in that. The commercialization that comes in that third phase, which of course is unfunded, it does offer you an opportunity to have sole source contracting with the government and allowing that the government agency, the one you have the SBIR from, or another agency that may see that what you're doing and want to buy it, we refer to that as sole source. In other words, come to you and purchase it. They don't have to put it out to bid. And so a lot of that seems to be going on lately is agencies moving across and maybe even finding something in phase 1 that was funded by a different agency, but it's something that they can now use. Your commercialization, again, that happens at phase 3, but your phase 1 proposal and something you need to have in mind all through your process is, how are you going to commercialize this? I think over the years, the SBIR program has developed a lot of research and development, and then it's set on the shelf someplace and has never gone to a commercialization, whether the government buys it or private funding. So they really have become more interested in knowing how you're going to get that commercialized in phase 3 if you actually can develop that project in phase 1 and continue on to finish up in phase 2. One of the interesting things we've seen in the last 8 or 9 months has been the Air Force. They're trying to develop this process faster, because you have to realize that they put the topics out. They have like a 12-week period that they're out there. Then they get all of the applications into the system, all the proposals. Then everybody has to go through and decide, is this something that they want to fund? then they finally make an award, and it might be several months later. Well, the Air Force has decided they need to speed their process up. So earlier this year, I think it was in the January to March timeframe, they asked companies to put together a one-page document, a white paper, and provide it to them on specific things that the Air Force wanted to buy. Those companies then, once the Air Force looked at those, I think they took it in January, February, they said, okay, these are the people we want to meet. Like 56 companies they brought to New York City. They set the program up so that they had 15 minutes, I believe it was, to make a presentation to the people from the Air Force that were there. The Air Force decided to fund probably 90% of the companies that were there. They gave them the 150,000 was the amount for their R&D, provided it on a credit card, a government purchase card, that they had the purchase card people on site so that they could actually begin to make payment to that company up front, as opposed to the normal, you start in the project and get paid and at various times you don't get the money up front. The Air Force did this up front so these companies could get started immediately. And they're continuing on with some of that going forward. It's all part of their SBIR program. But Kansas PTAC, if you want to contact us, look at our website. It's www.kansasptac.org. And you can find us at the Wichita State website also. You will have to, again, get that DUNS number, get your SAM registration. In order to get a DUNS number, you either have to have a company set up. It can be a sole proprietor company, and that it doesn't have to be an LLC or a corporation at this point, but some kind of structure in order to get your DUNS number and your SAM registration. And that's all we work on every day is government contracting. So we can help you through that process, and we continue to develop our expertise on the SBIR. So you have several organizations out here to help you move forward with that. Nancy, that's why.
That's really fantastic, Scott. Thank you so much. I think one of the geniuses of the Community Vitality Programming team is the fact that they saw that there's lots of resources that people aren't taking advantage of. And so when we know that there's people that are waiting, they've got good programs, they've got good training, got lots of experience at things that we need, then that's the genius of having this call and connecting. I'm just amazed. When I heard this program, when I heard about this program at the SBDC's, I'm sorry, Rural Innovation Conference in January, I think what Debra said that just blew my mind was the fact that so few Kansans are taking advantage of this, that our share of the pie is 5,000 grants or contracts a year, and we're taking fewer than 20, tells me that there's something wrong, because Kansans are innovative and they're smart and they're doing great things that need to be showcased to the world. So thank you both. You took what I thought was a complicated subject and broke it down very understandably. Okay, so now for our questions. Who has questions for Scott and for Debbie? You'll need to unmute your lines, but I invite you to do so.
Okay, while we're waiting for them to unmute, I will mention one other element. I thank Scott for pointing out that things are changing with the Air Force. They will continue to do their traditional calls, but they have added this speed area. NSF is also modifying the way that they do their business, and Navy. So just like many things are evolving, this is in transition. The vast majority this next year are going to be done the traditional way, but things are evolving, and the way the Air Force did it was remarkable for the government to move that quick. It's absolutely correct.
That was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be, you know, even though I was married the day after you were, Debbie, I would be really open to a date where you have $150,000 to spend on me.
There you go. That would be wonderful. Take care of you for 6 months, right?
Yeah, there you go, right.
Two other things I will mention for those of you who want to learn more. Some sophisticated want to learn more stuff. On October 24th at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a webinar, another hour-long webinar, and this is on how to prepare a budget for SBIRs, STTRs. And again, we'll be dealing with it from a generic level. Each agency has their own little nuances to it, but we are going to run a webinar with national experts. So as consultants and or as innovators, if you have any interest in this, this is one of the tricky parts, and we will be running a webinar, for an hour-long webinar. If you're taking notes, please add November 6th. On November 6th, we're going to be doing a full day with bringing in a national expert, Jim Greenwood, and he will be walking us from the very basics, some of the stuff that I just covered. He'll cover in the first half hour, and then he'll get down into some really nitty-gritty, how to write the proposal, how much of a page you need on each element. He gets down into some of the good nitty-gritty. If you do attend that particular group on the 6th, which is no charge, maybe we do have a $20 charge or something like that to cover lunch. Anyways, I'll get you the information, and you will be able to run your proposal by him, and he'll act as your red team to evaluate your proposal should you have it done 2 weeks in advance of submission. So it's a really good deal. He's worked with all of the agencies. One of the best known individuals in SBIR consultancies. Again, that is on the 6th of November, and it will be here on campus. The webinar is on October 24th.
Debbie, I heard you say that you'll get me the information, and I'll get it out to these 25 people who are on the call and 187 others that are on our list. So thank you for
Absolutely.
That. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's good that you're having that, Debbie. I've gotten the information, but that's that budget is very tricky because people need to make sure that they're doing a lot of things right when they're getting that budget. They need to make sure that they've plugged in some profit fees someplace in there to make sure that they're not taking the money out of their pocket to pay for this. And it's just a good way to make sure that you know what you're doing. And they'll probably talk too about what are allowable costs, what are not allowable costs, because there are some things that get into that. And people who aren't used to working in government contracting need to be very careful that they don't get into trying to charge unallowable costs. And Jim Greenwood does an excellent job. In fact, he'll be speaking next week at the National SBIR conference. He typically does programs there, so you're getting a nationwide expert there.
Fantastic. I do not see any unmuted phones, so I'm going to open it up. Thank you, Debbie and Scott. That was just really exciting, and I'm happy about the timing that you could promote these two events. We made this appointment back in January, so I don't know whether you knew about that timing when you chose your date, but such great synchronicity. So I again ask you to open up your line if you have something to share from your organization or agencies.
Hi, Nancy. This is Greg Jordan. I'm with the Kansas SBDC.
Wonderful, Greg.
And
Welcome.
I just wanted to point out that you mentioned the Rural and Independent Innovators Conference a couple of times. We have one coming up October 15th in Hayes. That is going to be a great event. And then we also have another one November 12th and 13th in Dodge City.
Thank you, Greg.
So that's a really great opportunity for people to learn more about the different ways to commercialize their innovation. Some of the topics include SBIR, STTR, and some other options as well, like our recent Encountering Innovation event where we had 70 people pitch to Department of Defense and other agencies to be able to see if perhaps the federal government in using different mechanisms might be interested in their products and innovation. So lots of great opportunities in Kansas, and we look forward to sharing them in a lot of these different ways.
Fantastic. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate you being here and sharing. Who else?
Hello, Nancy.
Michael.
Yeah, this is Michael Womack at the SBA. Great presentation. Both Debbie and Scott are experts. I also wanted to add for those who may be geographically challenged to attend the November 6th workshop in Wichita, the Small Business Development Center in Washburn and Topeka will also have Mr. Greenwood give a, I don't know if it's the exact same presentation on SBIR, but it's an all-day event the day before, November 5th in Topeka, and I'll send you that information after the call.
Yes, it's the same program. So thank you, Michael, for reminding us.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Deb is going to be out at the Hayes, but I will be part of that conference. So if you have some other questions that come up and you're out there, be sure to come up and ask.
I will be as well. So I look forward to connecting with you, Scott.
That was Greg. That's fantastic. Just the resources that are available. The idea that there's money sitting around waiting for you to apply for, and there's people not necessarily sitting around, but fully engaged, waiting to give you help is just almost mind-boggling.
Yes, this is Michael again. On a similar note, the Small Business Development Center in Manhattan will be hosting a series of workshops for involving women-owned small business and the various incentives and programs to develop women-owned small businesses related to contracting. And that's Tuesday, October 29th from 8:30 to 4, and people can go to any one of the workshops or all of them. So that's something else I'll send you. Along with, we're gonna have an event honoring our veterans, two of them, one in Manhattan on November 8th during National Veteran Small Business Week. We'll be covering all sorts of topics related to access to capital and contracting and such. And we'll also be highlighting two local successful veteran business owners here in Wichita at the 1 Million Cups event, 9 o'clock on November 6th. These 1 Million Cup events are excellent 1-hour events sponsored by the Kauffman Foundation. And so we look forward to co-sponsoring that event.
Fantastic. Anybody else? Well, thank you all for joining us, and Debbie and Scott, just can't thank you enough for making that so clear. And I'll be forwarding this out to as many people as I can, because I think that all the sharing that you've done today, I can just think of several people that will help us get these words out. And the more connected we are, the more successful we'll be. Our speaker next month for the first Friday, it is November 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And Steve Radley, or someone else in his place, somebody from Network Kansas, is going to tell us about the Kansas Community Innovators Network. And this is a brand new initiative. They have several brand new initiatives going on. And so I have encouraged him to go ahead but this is the one that I want him to focus on because I think it's really new to all of us. It has to do with philanthropy. So I think I need to change my introduction because clearly there's innovation going on at the local community as well, not just at the university. And that relates to our thought for the day by H. Jackson Brown. Don't be afraid to go out on a limb. That's where the fruit is. Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope you'll see us to come back next month.